this video we're looking at tables. Tables are an awesome bit of kit and allow lots of database functionality to be performed quickly and easily. We've already looked at tables in our formatting videos. Now we're going to have a look at some of the powerful database type functionality available in tables. To create my table, I'm actually going to use a shortcut, and that is holding down Control and pressing T. Excel automatically recognizes the table area, akin to using the shortcut Control A, and recognizes that my table has headers. I can leave all these default options in place. I click OK and the default formatting is applied. As discussed in previous videos, we have all the handy formatting features such as the banded rows and the highlighted top row. But let's have a look at some of the more functional aspects of tables. My list already had an auto filter applied to it, but if it didn't, Excel would have automatically added the filter options. So from here, I can now start to filter my data by region or by sales rep. I have all the sorting commands, and I can do my filtering by text or by any other format. Another really useful feature is that when I've applied table formatting to my data, I can then scroll down the page and I get effectively a mirror of the freeze panes functionality. That is, my column headers will stay with me wherever I move within the worksheet table. It's important to remember that this freeze pane functionality is context specific. So if I'm to click out of my table, I will lose the freeze panes. It is only relevant to the data that I'm working with. But while I am working with the table, I will be able to see the column headers. The other benefit of using tables, and we'll understand more about this later on in further videos, is they lend themselves particularly well to be used as the source for either a pivot table or a chart. The reason for this is that tables expand dynamically. For example, I'm to remove my auto sums and I want to start typing a new record. We can see that the Excel table has automatically expanded. I can see that because the new banded blue row has appeared at the bottom. I can also see the outline of the table, and the corner of the table has moved down by one row. I can actually manually adjust the size of the table myself, but it is good to know that as soon as you start typing, the table expands to accommodate your data. This means that any chart that is using this table as a source will automatically adjust to include the new data that you're adding. Similarly with pivot tables. We haven't looked at pivot tables or charts yet, but suffice to know that tables are an excellent source of data. The other key benefit of using tables is the provision of table-based formulas. Let's say, for example, I want to recalculate my total. I can create a new column header. Excel automatically adjusts to create a new column, and I can start typing my formula. Now, just to recap, when I use normal formulas, I type an equals, I point to a cell, and I get a cell reference, such as L2 or M16 or C28. But when I'm using formulas within a table, Excel will give me a formula based on the context of the table. So for example, let's start by pointing at unit cost. Excel labels the cell as unit cost, rather than E2, which you would do ordinarily if we weren't using a table. So I can multiply unit cost times units, and I have a very intuitive formula, one that says unit costs times units. I can reasonably expect it to be providing me a total. And from here I can click enter. Before I do that, I just want to warn you of one particular behavior that Excel will display, and it will automatically fill down my formula all the way through the column. Excel assumes that I automatically want to fill the formula down to the bottom of the table. By and large, this is a very useful feature. But if you find Excel is filling down formulas that you don't want it to fill down, you want to create your own custom formulas that vary in different ways, you can turn this feature off to stop Excel from automatically creating calculated columns. I very much like the use of this table type notation within my formula bar. Excel is effectively creating various different named ranges for each one of the columns, for the headers, for the body of the data. Let's have a look at some of these. So if I reference my top row, we can see that Excel is interpreting this as Table 1 headers, If I was to change the reference to the body, I can see that Excel references this simply as Table 1. I am using all of the data in Table 1. Again, I can choose a different reference, such as an entire column, and my formula reference appears as Table 1, Email column. But some of you may be already asking yourselves, how do I add absolute referencing? Nowhere in here is there a $sign. Can I try and add a $sign? This effectively is not a valid syntax within a table, so I cannot use standard relative referencing and absolute referencing like I would do with a normal Excel range. This is in some ways a limitation, but we can find ways to work around this. At this point, it's important to understand the copy-paste behavior within tables. Let's just try first of all copying this column of data. I'll copy the entire column and paste it next to the existing column. Excel has simply copy-pasted like for like the exact same formula. It is still pointing at unit costs and units, exactly like the original column did. Okay, fine. So by using the copy-paste command, I've achieved something similar to using absolute referencing. That is, my cells have stayed locked to the same column. But if I highlight my entire column and use the fill handle, I get an error. The reason for the error is not because there's anything inherently wrong with the formula, it's just the fact that the formula has moved in a relative sense. So instead of pointing at unit costs and units, it has now shifted one across to units and email. Therefore, what we have is the ability to use relative and absolute type referencing, similar to the way we would do with an ordinary cell. So remember, if you copy and paste your data, you will achieve an absolute reference. If you fill your data, you will get a relative reference. And these are some of the excellent features available within tables.